Check, check, check. All right, so we are going to get started today. Hello, everyone. My name is Hal Rains from Seattle, Washington. So it's 9 o'clock here. Oh, I did a bad thing. I put the audio on from the video, so let me turn that off so I can hear myself without echoing and repeating. Um, so so we're talking today about musicians and understanding audio. Now I did this class and put this class together and had an original plan of doing a whole live thing from my church's sound booth and having everything kind of laid out. But we're gonna have to do a modified version of that today. So I actually have some videos of doing all the different things and having some information for the audio people and for the musicians. So we have a great class set up for you guys today. Just a little background on myself. Again, I probably started playing music in whew, middle school, I guess. Different things, and then in church settings, I started, in the angel choir, if you want to call that singing for real. And and then when I got to high school, joined the youth choir. The months into that, they needed a drummer. I started playing drums. And my high school life, I was playing or getting involved with media and video and production and live sound. I was the school's audio person, and through life, ended up playing, ended up learning the piano somehow by ear, and then became a minister of music somehow. Ended up leading worship songs here and there, doing live things, getting involved with my own company, developing lots of different things, and then turning that into a whole lot of working with corporate AV and then singing yeah. So I play multiple instruments. I do a lot with AV and video and lighting and sound and everything. Excuse the camera setup. I did. There's actually no controls when this camera is live, and I just didn't feel like getting anything else out. So, um, and there's lots of things I've been able to, I guess, experience on both sides and kind of contrast to be able to put together and actually create really nice experiences. So I've actually been able to be called in. Hey, we want you to um, come to this church, come to this session, come to this place, do sound for us. I would have loved to show you some videos of that and the different soundboards I've gotten to use. I worked as a AV director at a church for a little bit, and using $100,000 when it was first introduced soundboard, and I've used everything down to those little box little soundboards. So today we're gonna just kind of take a journey. Now, the one thing I want to have is musicians understanding audio. Is I'm gonna be able to talk to musicians about audio and what they need to understand to be able to create a really cohesive and understanding setup. And when we start talking about musicians and understanding audio, it's like there's a lot to kind of get in there. There's a lot to kind of put in there, and I don't want to overload you with things, but I want you to know how to actually get the best out of your Sunday mornings, your audio person. Whether that's like you don't really have an audio person, maybe the pastor comes, sets up, turn some knobs and dials on, and then you're like, okay, let's go. So we're gonna kind of talk through that, bring some of that kind of stuff out as we go along here. I'm gonna just show this screen for a second. This is stuff we're going to kind of cover in the most of it. Again, I didn't want to get too in depth and really kind of overload any musician with information that's not really going to be beneficial to you in the long run. And hopefully, I'll take some questions and stuff as time goes on. Um, and I do have the chat up, but I will try not to look at that until I'm ready to take questions. So as I see y'all, what up, y'all? Anyway, um, so let's kind of move on to this first point. And again, I do have some video of actual running a whole check. Now, the one thing I want to get everybody kind of going on, and this is something that I know that the AV and the musicians need to know is, and because here's the thing: if you have a system and no one has done some of this stuff, but preparing the system EQ and using all that stuff, if no one has done that at your church, that's kind of why you have some issues going on. That's kind of why you have a few things that are maybe not in place, and why you can't turn microphones up, and why it's hard to get things to happen in services, or you have things blaring loud now, and now you have to figure out how to deal with them. So, as a musician, you have a responsibility, and as the audio people, you have a responsibility. And again, if you're the pastor, if you're somebody, that's kind of where everything is at. Now, what I normally see and what I want to do is just kind of level the playing field with this whole thing. Everybody probably has a different soundboard. Most people probably have an X32, but most people have something different here today. And the whole idea is if even if you have a really cheap analog, one of those box sound systems, or even if you don't have a mixer with a that one of those box sound systems, and I'm pulling this up right here. You probably have a mixer, and this mixer probably has a section up here that's a graphic EQ. And what you probably normally have seen if things are bad is that you got you hit one day you plugged in some music to the tape input because you found out the tape input was a good way to get music in, and somebody was like, "Us, I want some bass in that," so they could turn up these knobs here, and they realize, "Oh, this is the bass in here, and maybe I need to put a little high end here and do all that there, and maybe make that and shape it, make it sound. Yeah, this is how I have it in my car." And it's kind of like this. That is the improper use of a graphic EQ. And I don't know if you know what one is, but if you start seeing stuff boosted really high in these little areas, that is why you're probably having lots of problems. The graphic EQ was never meant to be used as a way to make things sound better. It was always used as a way to cut things out that were problems. Now, you have lots of other features on every soundboard, like a low cut and all these different things. But if you want, like, say you're a singer and you're listening to your singing in a monitor on the floor, you want to be able to like bring down the you want to be able to have the mic be loud enough you can be close enough to hear what's going on, but not get that feedback. Literally, this is all about feedback. This is all about you not having to listen to that feedback and things being smooth. So what should be happening on this board is, okay, so in this frequency range I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Let me bring that frequency down around those little areas here, shaping that out. Okay, yeah, it's getting a lot of low end. Maybe we have a guitar, and I'm hearing some things, and this lower end is kind of booming. And again, you have EQs on the board, but this whole area was really all it is about is just shaping your sound. Now, if you don't know as a musician, this will save you the headache of having that one mic in your church that you can't turn the volume up because you're standing like 5 feet from a floor monitor and the main speakers. Now, I've seen a lot of churches and they're all different sizes. We all have different problems, but I wanted to bring that out first, because what we need to do, and again, every church has a different setup, different needs, but having your room EQ is actually what's going to make life happier for you as a musician, as a pastor, as a church, as a sound person. Again, if you have a box with the E room with one of those little graphic EQs, That's how you save it. Now let's see, how do I actually work that? How do I actually like learn how to do that? Well, you can get a little app. Now I love this app here. Now what it's doing is showing me all the frequencies that are happening in this room right now. So it's doing a lot. Now this is cheap. It doesn't actually do things I think fully accurately, but it's as close enough to actually make things work. So what you would do is you kind of go to your system, you bring volumes up until it starts ringing, and then that's when it'll actually like show you. Now it'll kind of show you just that one area. So I'm gonna try something. It's hard for me. I'm looking at too many screens and the delay. And you can see that one area that boosted. Well, if you have a frequency and it has frequency information there that's close to that, that's the one you can bring down. Now that because basically it's not just that one microphone, it's probably that frequency in your entire room or where that speaker is pointed at is going to bounce off the walls and come back and feedback at that one frequency. Now, this allows you as a musician to be able to sing better, different instruments, like especially if you're playing guitar. Guitars can be can run havoc on monitors if you don't have them, and if your floor monitors are not mixed. But that is the dirty way of getting this done. So I'm gonna actually show some videos again. And again, let me just do this now. If your board has something called even if your board like the one I showed you has like a 9-band graphic EQ on it, you're probably going to want to get a 31 band somehow attached into the mix of your main mix and even your monitors if you don't have it. Digital soundboards have all that kind of stuff in there, which is nice. But if you look at this guy, I mean, this is even a cheap little something that I have here. It's 15 bands, but having this, the mixer I have has a section or an input thing called a um, main insert. The main insert is actually like allows you to insert sound or something into the main channel. So that's what you would use for like a graphic EQ or if you want to put some compressor or something. But you find that frequency that's messing up and you bring that one down. Don't just start using this to shape and make I want some bass and I want some whatever. No, that is my biggest pet peeve when I come to a lot of churches to do sound or to do different things. Now I've come to some churches and I've actually seen almost the whole entire range pushed down, and that is overdone. And you don't want to overdo it. And you want to start over again. And then I've seen a guy who started doing this and has actually like spent 25 minutes just like pushing things down because he did it way too much, and another frequency popped up, and one popped up again, and then over here, and it kind of went crazy. I also have been in rooms, especially in corporate environments. There's a hotel in Seattle, I think the Bellevue. I forgot. Hotel I worked at in Seattle a lot has these ball chandeliers, and each chandelier has about 25 like little teardrop balls, glass made, and about 30 or 40 of them in this like ballroom, and they cause havoc on sound. So when you start doing their EQ, like another sound person who hasn't done it yet, look at your EQ like, isn't that a little bit too much? It's like, no, this actually works for this room, and there's guys who've done EQs and has shaped things, and honestly, we've taken pictures of what their settings are, so we can come back and easily just put those back. And it's like, what I'm getting at is every room is different. You will find people online and on YouTube giving like, hey, use this setting all the time. Don't do that. Find out what EQ setting is right for you. Make sure if you're a musician, your sound person or somebody who's doing sound is finding how your wedge is EQ'd out so that there is no frequency gaps in there. Again, you want to be able to stand close enough or get close enough or sing loud enough or be able to have whatever's going on so that you can actually perform and give and do. I'm gonna play a video now. I'm gonna play the video. I had kind of did this out of order when the editing, but I changed up how and when I want to show it to you because I'm working with a musician, a friend of mine, in his office. His office is an office, not a not a sanctuary. So we're working in there. He has some big 12-inch speakers as mains and some 10-inch floor speakers in there. We were going to talk about in-air mixes, but we didn't get to all that. But we're gonna actually watch that video, and the issue is, I know I'm telling you that before you should do anything, you need to actually do a room mix. Well, I never did, so we're actually gonna go through trying to do a sound check, and then we're gonna start finding those different areas, and I'm gonna actually go through and show you on a digital board how I actually got rid of those things, so you can see the whole process happen. All right. So we got the mic there. Let's have you go now. Let me hear your vocal. So let's have you sing a little bit.
Can I play and sing or no?
You can if you need to.
Okay. I forgot the song goes. Who will stand against the Lord? No one can. No one will. Who will stand against our King?
Now you guys can see I'm bringing up.
No one can, no one will. Oh, victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. So that's good if I want to back off the mic, which is actually, can I talk? Do you mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I'm singing, I hate to be like right here. A lot of people EQ the mics so they're right here.
Yeah.
These mics are built so that they come out like this. So about a half a foot away is where I like it. If it doesn't make it too hot, then I start to get feedback. So if I start to get feedback from this far over, which I can hear kind of tinging a little bit, I'll move closer.
Okay.
I'll move closer and kind of, especially in a small room like this.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll definitely move because even though I'm like, oh, I said, right. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. And I might get louder. Victory belongs to Him.
Hold, don't play real quick, but let me get.
Just acapella?
Want to hear where that frequency is at?
That's coming off of definitely this one, off of the red line.
Yeah, right now. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually, since we didn't actually do a room EQ for this room, I'm actually doing a room EQ kind of as we go on the fly here. Yeah. So yeah, I saw that frequency hitting right there, feeding back. And something over here. And again, with room EQ, sometimes you might need to be dramatic or drastic. Sometimes you don't need to be. I doubt he's going to be singing that high. Need the mic to be that loud.
Well, that's the one thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Is when we start worship. And by the way, one of my pet peeves is when people say check your mic and they go check 1 2. That just means the mic's on.
Right.
That does not actually give a level. You need to sing something so
exactly.
You can see. And what I like to do, but we can't do that here. If we have a full band, we'd have everybody singing full so we could see what it sounds like. And so when the Spirit moves you, you might want to get a little. I might get that loud.
Right.
You know, I might, but as a singer, because I knew we did it at a certain volume.
Yeah.
If I'm going louder, I'll actually back up and give the mic more space and let my voice project out. And sometimes I end up staying at worship a little further back than where I mic check because I'm being sensitive to the sound of the mic.
And that's good for us. That's good for musicians to hear. That's the musician side. Like, making sure when you do your sound checks with your sound guy, think about that point. I kind of joked earlier that
musicians are going to lie. They're going to tell you they're singing their hardest, passionate, most heartfelt way, and it's loud and it's full. It's 8 o'clock in the morning or earlier than that. You just got in, you woke up, you probably haven't talked to anybody, or maybe all you did was say good morning to most people in your family, and that's all you've actually done. So your throat isn't really warmed up yet. So then you come in and you're not really passionately there. You get warmed up through your rehearsal, really, but you kind of needed to be there. So I definitely say come warmed up. So when these things happen, like, yeah, you want to be able to sing into your mic with a good amount of volume. And because you will be stronger as time goes on throughout the morning, make sure you do kind of do some things where you back up if you're going to get louder and sing things. And let's listen to it. Make sure you can get a good check in your speaker so that you know where you are. So if you can really start hearing yourself over everything, yeah, back away. You've now hit a point. And the sound person, at that point where you're talking about floor monitors, does not hear what you hear. So you can't complain about what they hear if you didn't give them the proper setup at the beginning. They're going to make sure the house sounds good. Hopefully your gain structure sounds great and is on point, but they need to make sure that they have everything that they need. So if you do a great sound check, a great setup, you're going to have a great service. Everyone's going to hear what they need to hear, and it's just going to be easy and flowing and smooth.
Unfortunately, I was going to try and find a song that while I'm driving to the church.
Oh, yeah.
I actually use a song that not is a guy playing the piano and just pretty much the rest of the singers, and their voices are very distinct, and I try to stay within the tenor. If I'm singing tenor, I try to stay within tenor, and I sing that tenor part, and I try to warm up my voice, obviously not very loud, but just try to warm up my voice. And then most singers, most churches never do voice exercises, so the laziest way to do it is find something that you like and sing softly and just get your vocal cords warmed up.
That's good.
And drink a lot of water the day before.
Yeah, very good, very good. So let's see. Now, if you want to kind of tell what's going on with this board, I'm kind of doing some main mix stuff, and I have a mix going to the recording, so we're here on bus 3 and 4, and he has 2 speakers here, but bus 1 is the main speaker that's kind of in front of him. I'm kind of only messing with that one just because it's easier, I think, to just do one in this situation right now, and this is one person singing.
And can I interject?
Yeah.
So even though the wedge monitors are on bus 1 and 2 for wedges, I could daisy chain these monitors and make them all under bus 1. But the reason I didn't do that is because when I do have, it's weird, it's an office, there's a lot of equipment in here. One side is an office, one side is kind of music stuff. If I do have people singing on this side, I want them to have their own mix.
Yeah, that's good. And that's always a good thing. I mean, it's tough when everyone has to use the same mix, but it also makes you have to come together and solidify it a lot more, which is not easy. Sometimes better for you to end up doing, but it's really hard to get everyone on the same page sometimes too. So, so where are we at? So we have you on this piano mic. Okay.
Do you want me to switch to check the piano sound as well?
Yeah, let me hear you sing again, I guess, into the mic. Just make sure we got good signal and everything.
You want me to? Can I play, or do you want me to just sing?
You can play.
You can sing out. Because I can sing a cappella fine.
Because I just did a whole EQing onto the room speakers and I think on those speakers now too. So we shouldn't get any feedback. Shouldn't.
Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him.
All right. Thank you very much.
Got
it. And yeah, so let's.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. We're back. So yeah, and I got some questions coming out. I was getting ready to type it all out, but Yeah, so when we are talking about doing that room EQ, the way I usually do it is I have someone stand. Um, I usually hold the mic myself. I usually stand probably in the back wherever the sound booth is, and I start boosting the mics and the gain up until I start getting something that will overload, a frequency that will overload, and then I will bring that frequency down when I hear that. Now, usually when you start doing it from the back of the room with the main speakers, you'll find those pretty fast. And again, I get it so loud that I will never use it. So I start boosting the gain up as loud as I go. I turn the fader up as loud as I can go. I personally like to do it to a way where it's like gonna kill the system if anyone actually talks loud. So I get it from I'm talking like not naturally like this to a point where I'm like, okay, let's just get this team, and I can probably hear that whisper loudly across the room. That's how cleanly I try to get it. I will never use that much volume, but if I can get it that loud, no one's ever gonna be able to overload the system or have a screech or anything. Like I had people walk past speakers. I had someone walk past the floor monitor, had the microphone right in front of it. Like I mean, that's what I like. I think about just the average person is probably never really trained to think about, understand those kind of things. And everyone in the audience, once it happens, is like, "Oh my God, that's terrible! I can't, ah, And then they stare at the sound person like you did something wrong, but really the person who's holding the mic doesn't have good mic training. So as a sound person, you got to prepare for that. Some people aren't trained to do that kind of stuff, um, and some people aren't don't know that they are the problem. So you have to make sure you help them figure that out. And again, this was the X Air app, edit app. I want to say they almost all the same. And then if you find an Android version, they look a little bit different. Some of them, they all control your boards. And most digital soundboards will have an app that does that. And it has all the features on there. So anything in the digital realm right now, and I'm a big proponent for trying to go digital. In a lot of different ways. I'm working with the church right now, so they are going from an analog board like the one I showed you earlier. They're getting an X32 compact. The main selling point I had for that is once I get their whole board set up, there's going to always be a return to safety point for them. So if things get out of whack, someone doesn't know what they're doing. They get a lot of volunteers helping out. There's a way for them to come back and actually just have everything back at neutral. And if you have an analog board and everyone is just touching dials and making things happen, they don't know, plugging things in, it gets crazy. In the world that we are with broadcasting now, the biggest thing I think people are wanting to figure out is either how to get all the instruments over the broadcast or get all the different things. Like a lot of churches only have their microphones going through their house system anyway, so all their musicians are out there. There's no microphones. Everybody has an amp and all that kind of stuff. I'm a big proponent for getting rid of all the amps, getting rid of all the things. I play bass and I hate it. I hate the idea. So if you have subs, get subs. If you don't know what that is, never mind. But I feel like in a way, like when you get stage volume off the stage, if you get, I mean, again, it's hard to get rid of, say, a Hammond in your organ speaker, but putting it off to the side, putting microphones on it, and having all that kind of stuff in there. Again, you may never actually put the volume through the house, but with the digital boards, you'll want to be able to gather that. So maybe for your broadcast, you can do some stuff. So let me try to read this. So you're setting gain of the mics and EQing the speakers at the same time. Only for the room check I'm doing that. When we actually start getting into actually sound checking, which is the next part I'm going to show you of that video setting of series, I guess a series. That part of it is when we actually do what you do on a Sunday morning. And that's kind of the next section. I just wanted to hit on this real quick. Preparing and knowing the stage and the connections. As a sound person, even as a musician, like you should know the connections on where you're at and how to get to everything. Where you plug in microphones, if you plug in microphones, I know a lot of churches try to go wireless and do a lot of wireless stuff. Have some backup plugins available if you know that and or know how to plug everything in. I guess I was hitting on it when you're talking about broadcast mixes, but um, look into the idea of putting all of your instruments and everything sound into a digital mixer. If you got a box mixer right now, don't rush into this. If you're in a place and you don't have people to really understand this, don't rush into this. Don't get into a situation that's crazy unless you have someone to help you. I mean, honestly, it can get crazy if you're trying to figure out by yourself. There are lots of companies and sound and people out there who can help you set that kind of stuff up, but make sure you have a good idea of what to tell them what your Sundays are like, what things you need to kind of happen. Um, if your soundboard is in the front of the church right next to the pulpit, you know, let's first work on seeing out how we can get that a board into the back of the room, or even getting a digital board so we can have someone in the room or in somewhere in the space controlling the audio with an iPad or tablet and making that kind of smoother. The reason why everyone should know where all the connections are is, yeah, you might have an emergency. I get it. We're in churches. Some of us are very Holy Spirit filled. Someone starts dancing. They step all over the connection. The connection somehow was built into the floor or attached to the wall, or the audio snake. Someone just somehow was able to actually trip over it, fall over it, break it. Knowing where you can route things and get things going is going to be really good for you. Having a backup plan for that kind of stuff is good. That's all I'm really gonna hit on with that. Everyone probably should understand that kind of stuff. Uh, it's kind of like, don't buy something if you don't know what you're getting into. Actually figure it out. And if you're gonna buy into being a worship team member, know what's going on around you a little bit. Just don't show up every week and kind of have to everything. Actually show up. I like what John was saying, and I think we were talking about warming up in that video segment there. Let's do that. Let's see. When we our ministry got a sub, what a world of difference. We refer to our sub as Bishop Boom. I like that. Yeah, subs kind of help you do everything, and it helps it can say if you are getting away from everyone having an amp, that bass player is like, I can't take it, I can't deal with it. That sub will help them. I was don't all my stuff's in the car. I have in-ear mix boxes, and when you have these digital mixers, you can have in-ear mixes as well, so they can put on some beefy headphones and get that sound and hear the sound and dial in their own mix, and then that sub will give that feeling that they're missing, and it will help alleviate some of their frustrations. Even the drummer is like, man, the when I'm hitting the bass pedal, like it feels like nothing at some point. But when you have that sub in the room, if they feels like there's a life behind what they're doing, and it gives them life, it gives them freedom. It may make them play louder. Figure that out on your own time. But it's always something that you can kind of go through and figure out. So now I want to talk about proper Sunday morning sound checks stuff, and we're gonna watch a video here mostly on this as the actual beginning of this video. But we did a lot of. I do a lot of when I come to a church, like I said, I get asked to come and do sound sometimes, and there is there's a lot of churches that have really great systems or have no systems, and they don't really know what a good sound check is. People don't really understand why I'm asking them to play and sing. People don't understand what good procedures are. But when you hear the end result, you kind of figure it out. But good sound check is where you want to make sure you actually put your effort into on a Sunday morning. Again, if you have one of those box PA systems, do a sound check every Sunday morning. Figure out who's singing, and I get it. There's some churches that do a random person comes up and testifies, sings, and as best you can ride that mic, as best as you can. You never know who's gonna do what and what skill or training they have. But every Sunday, as you start maybe putting sound into a digital mixer and plugging microphones and instruments all into there, so you can have it all collected and can do whatever you want with it at some point. Or even just so the musicians can hear each other and still have headphones on that separates them from the outside world of sound. You'll start to be able to figure out why these steps kind of make sense. So proper Sunday morning procedure. Sound person gets there, gets the system on, turned on, warmed up. The band starts coming in. My hope is they, on their way to church, were singing and warming up their voices and getting ready and prepared. We get in there. We start with the instruments, and we start with, I think, the quietest instrument. I usually start with a piano. Probably move on to some drums. Probably with a guitar, bass, drums, depending on where I'm at, and how I want the sound to build and what levels and frequencies. I won't get into like sound mixing and what levels and how that whole theory of sound and what you're doing, but you want to carve a space for every instrument in your parametric EQ, not your graphic EQ. We saw a graphic EQ, but that's a whole different ball game. I don't want to do too much of that today. But you start getting into those EQs and making some things kind of look weird and making things kind of come out. But that's where you want to start kind of getting things. So working with your instruments, getting all that kind of stuff together, making sure the instruments are in place, set up, connected right, and you go through, you do your checks with them, get your gain structure down first, and that's what we're going to talk about now is gain structure. And this helps musicians and vocalists and everyone to sound right, and why I think a lot of churches just have a lot of loud sound on a Sunday versus having a lot of clear, clean, and really mixed stuff. Again, most churches are using only the vocal mics into the PA system, and they're not using any instruments in there. So their instruments aren't collected. Maybe they have a piano. That's a start. But once you get everything collected, you can start doing more. Once you start getting rid of stage volume, you can start doing more, having more, making it sound better. The old people will come back to church. They're not complaining about it's too loud. All that kind of stuff happens, I'm sure, a lot. And again, I'll start going on to vocals after I get through the band, and then everyone kind of comes in. Let me see what's next. So everyone comes in right after that. So we can bring everybody to play their songs. Then I will release them to do their checks and sound check and whatever else. I make sure I get all that kind of stuff. Now that should happen every Sunday, every single service. I don't care if it was the same people it was last night. Someone's knob or volume is going to be different. Something is going to happen. It's the next day. Their throat is stronger. Their throat is weaker. Especially now I don't know if we're doing vacation Bible school or camps or anything like that. Voices fluctuate like crazy. You have that morning worship and it's like, ooh, yeah, and then you get later, yeah, ah, ah. So and I'm sure you've all have been there, no matter what style of worship you do. There's always those loud voices and those quiet voices. So I'm gonna get in this video. This is the actual intro of everything, and this will kind of show what a proper getting your EQing and your gain structure stuff set up. Gain structure is the key to the game, and I don't want to get that too crazy with that, but this is what should feel normal, is when the sound person actually makes sure you sound good. All right.
Hey guys, so you've already been looking at and hearing me talk about just kind of pre-setting up your whole entire sanctuary, your space for where you do worship. Now I'm kind of in a weird little spot, my friend's office doing something, so this is not a sanctuary, this is not a cathedral, this is not, even a small storefront church kind of situation. And whatever you guys got, remember, make sure your EQ is set for you. Don't just copy and paste someone else's. Go through the steps of actually doing a room EQ to get to where you want to go. So again, when you get into your software and you start looking at your mains and you want to get into there, Like say if you're using a Behringer product like the X32, Behringer, maybe the Wing, I guess, they all have a section where there is a graphic EQ, and that's where you want to start going in there. Bring your mic up, find those areas where you want to eliminate those sounds that are causing you problems, that are going to cause problems during the service, that are going to overload microphones, whatever it is. Make sure you deal with that kind of stuff on your own before anyone gets there. Now I have John here who's going to be helping me. I'm mixing what I'm doing on a broadcast audio side mix, so he's going to be playing some songs with me, and we're just going to talk through how to actually do maybe a good sound check. So I have my friend John here, and he's going to kind of go through the sound check with me, so we're going to talk through this. And as you guys can see here, we have a X-Air R18, X18, yeah. XR18, XR18.
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 It's an Air XR18 or something like that.
Yeah.
By Behringer, yeah.
Here we are. So again, we're gonna go. I'm gonna get on master. We're gonna start with, I think, his guitar. So I kind of have a EQ for a guitar that's kind of already there, but that's not the first place you want to go. First, you want to make sure you get the right levels for your microphones and for your instruments and everything. So setting the gain. A lot of times in a lot of places you see that old style of doing gain where everyone puts everything on unity and then turns the gain to find the right volumes. That's not a good way of doing your thing. You want to have good gain structure across the entire board. So the best way to do this, again, that was the way that it was done for a long time, and like when mixers were first coming out, when there was just big dials and knobs and everything. But now we're here in a place of digital. The whole idea of how digital meters and digital signal works is totally different. So you can't use that old way. So the best way to do is just find your gain. And you can actually just mute sometimes the channel and actually start having the person bring it up, but they probably need to hear a little bit. So can you just play for me real quick? Maybe give me some good strumming, something. A good strums. Sorry, can you give me a really good strums song? Yeah. And so something around, I guess that negative 20 decibels is a good starting point to have everything for your signal. You don't want to get higher. You don't want to clip. Getting higher is going to make a lot of different noise. They'll boom in the room and just not be a clean signal. So about around there is a pretty good signal. And again, all musicians are going to lie to you and tell you they're playing as hard as they can, but when worship starts, they're going to play harder and more passionately. All right, so thank you. Let me hear your picking now. So let's just double check to see where some of his lighter things are going to happen as well. And just kind of see what kind of signals we get there off the picking. So I think that's suitable for me for a guitar. You know, he's doing everything. And I did my EQ kind of earlier, so for the room I'm in, based on the room EQ that we will have, that EQ I think kind of worked for me. You guys can kind of see some of how the shape of that curve and how that works. I'll try and show some analog mixer stuff, probably what that kind of would look like if you have an analog mixer at home or at your church. So we got the E-room EQ. You guys can see I have a low cut filter on there just to cut in some of that low end sound. Now we can go on also and do some compression and different things going on here. You can get your compression settings, but now let's start talking about it. Now as a sound guy, that's what you want to figure out, is just make sure you got good clean signal in, you know, wherever everything is being sent to and passed through, you'll figure that out as you go along. But now you start talking to the musician. So hey, John, let me know how is the sound in the monitor? Do you need more of your guitar in your monitor?
Probably not.
Not? Okay.
It might actually be, once I get going,
yeah,
and put a pick to it, if I did that, it'd probably be very loud.
Okay.
But I think it's a...
Okay.
I mean, that's already...
booming out.
Especially for the room and whatnot. Yeah, that's probably a little too much.
Okay.
You know, because then my voice is going to be, I don't sing, I don't do this to the mic. I'm about,
yeah,
2-3 hours. Try to make the mic work for me, so like if I can. So
all right.
That would be too loud.
All right. So again, John is using a floor wedge. So again, floor wedge is a whole other speaker that you have to deal with the EQ of that, maybe using a graphic EQ or maybe just using your parametric EQs, however you want to do that. Make sure you've got some way to control your sound of your floor wedges as well as your in-ear mixes and whatever else is going on, which digital boards can do easier than an analog board.
That ended quick. I forgot how that ended. All right. So I I went through that whole setup just to kind of show a the initial parts of doing your mix and then once I got the EQ settings. Sorry, and once I got the graphic settings. Now I will say that EQ probably look crazy to some people who are out there. And again, my style of audio mixing is a mixture of live and a mixture of studio, and trying to imitate a lot what a lot of other things that have people are doing out there. So I that was more of a I'm trying to imitate some of the wispy sounds of a Hillsong guitar strumming kind of thing. Again, secrets, tips, tricks, and different things that you kind of do out there. And again, that's half studio and half live. Let's see. What is the difference between a graphic and a parametric EQ? What are their purposes? So usually the parametric EQ is gonna be like the high, medium, low, and settings that you'll see on each channel. And on digital boards, you'll get something that actually has also a maybe some different variables so you can adjust where those mid frequencies are getting boosted and cut. And when you start using those, you can kind of fine tune where you actually lose and gain and get some of those frequencies that you want to eliminate, accentuate, get rid of, depending on what you need to do for that speaker or whatever that's going on, and that, or even for your vocals as you're looking at it. So using that is different. So again, that's the kind of the knobs on this. And I guess this board has at least one for those. So, like I said, this board has a high. Hope you can see that has a high knob. It has a mid and then a mid frequency, I believe. So you can choose where you boost or cut that mid frequency, and then it has your low. Now, again, analog boards don't have any of that for the output speakers, and that's kind of what is the nice about the digital. The digital speakers, you can actually there's a different type of, like, you can have on digital board you have your graphic EQ plus a parametric EQ on every single output usually. So you can shape and control everything in almost any kind of way that you feel comfortable with and putting the time in. Again, I would use the graphic EQ on every channel to get rid of, excuse me, as I put that board away. I would use the graphic EQ to get rid of all your feedback, and then use the parametric EQ to actually shape the sound. Like, you don't need a thumping bass out of a vocalist's floor wedge. They don't produce that much noise. They don't produce that much sound. So that's something you can kind of get rid of and get rid of those sounds. And I talked about a low cut filter. That's pretty much just cutting off all the frequencies from down to 20 hertz to 100, maybe more of that, depending on the mic or the person, the vocal. Like, microphones will pick up a lot of frequencies. No one's voice actually will produce all those frequencies, but it will also pick up things that are producing those frequencies that are around it, that are in reach. So sometimes you want to just shape and get rid of that stuff. And then EQing, and when you figure out EQing, so vocalists, when you're singing and you're doing things, you want to make sure you're doing the right. You want to make sure you're singing strong and loud so they can get a good EQ on you. I think earlier we were talking about showing up and just saying, okay, let's do a sound check. Let me check your mic, and all you say is check, check, check. That is like horrible, because now the sound person is like, I have nothing to work with, and you might sound terrible later on everywhere in the house, on a broadcast, or in your own monitor. You might sound harsh, and maybe you love the sound of your own voice and you did it on purpose, which happens. But it's like, in order to actually make everyone gel and sound good together and feel comfortable, you want to make sure you have everybody coming together and making all that kind of stuff harmoniously synchronously, whatever the leads you want to use, and it only happens when things are kind of preset and set up the right way. That's one thing I kind of love. Now, fine tuning instruments. This is kind of be kind of the last part of this whole thing that I'm gonna try and get out of the way. We can answer some more questions that are here. But fine tuning instruments. Now, this is probably something that I'm talking about doing not in the sound check, but this is something you might want to come later on. Like one thing that happened during this session with John is he has a keyboard that has stolen ideas from another keyboard that sounds really great, and trying to get those things to meld right with his system and everything. And I don't know where the settings are. Those things kind of made it sound weird. It made it come together and kind of strange. So I actually wanted to well, there's a lot of actuallys. I wanted to fine tune his keyboard to actually make sure it really sounded well. Like it sounded harsh, and there were some different things there. Now, a lot of time when you start plugging all your instruments and all your different things into there, electric guitar players have certain sounds that they add onto it. Certain keyboards have different sounds that they add onto it, and again, a lot of keyboards, if you're using something besides your piano, organ, and strings, and all these digital sounds that are out there nowadays, and a lot of music, kind of produce some different things, different grunges, and if you don't have a proper gain structure for your keyboard, and if you don't have that, if you don't know what that sound is, like you got to know your instrument too, like knowing what your instrument does and produces when it has something. And if you don't have great speakers at home when you listen to everything, you will show up at church thinking it sounds great, and you have this horrible sound coming out. So this one, again, it was kind of weird. I tried to work it out and make everything kind of smooth, but we took time to try to I took time away from trying to just do a quick sound check to actually doing hey, let's find what's going on with your instrument and why it sounds the way it sounds. This is great to do off church hours. If you got a keyboard player, an organist, whatever you need to check, see if they can come early, stay late, sometime when people aren't around, just to make sure that you can get a good check on everything and make sure everything is smooth and contained and is well put together. Once you have all that, it actually is going to be easier for everyone and nicer for everyone to kind of see and experience. So I'm going to show that video now.
And yeah, so let's go to that piano now.
Okay, another. Sorry, are you recording still?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that is really funny is I don't know if this does this. This obviously affects what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And I remember when I used to run sound, guys would start at half.
Yeah.
As they started playing, they turn up their own volume, which really takes me off.
Yeah. I usually try.
If you need go like this, don't actually manipulate your own volume over here. So I'm gonna max out the volume so that you can.
Let's do it at 75%. I think.
75%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So keyboard volumes, I usually try to put at 75%. That's pretty good, decent amount. And then we can make sure we're getting good. And let me do a few things here.
Okay.
Just make sure I can get started the right way. But we're going to just bring the gain up on that again to get us about that 20 decibel area.
This sounds a little dead. This is probably. You don't have it in the mains?
I don't have any in the mains. Oh,
Okay.
well, I'm kind of EQing the mains, or EQing I guess the mains are really low. And let's see, your monitor.
Switch it up. It could be part of the effect I'm using too. What, yeah, I was going to say something about pianos, but I see you clicking, and I'll let you do what you're doing first.
Go ahead, I guess, yeah.
So, like, this is a Yamaha stage piano, 76 key. This is a nice sound for, it's kind of a grand piano-ish sound. But if you're leading, and there's not a lot of instruments in, that grand piano sounds really muted. So I would switch, if it was just myself, to a CP80, a little brighter, and then obviously the sound guy could dial me down or take off the high ends a lot. There's a lot on this right now, right? Like there's a lot of everything.
It's kind of all condensed into lower mids, and it actually sounds. It sounds like it's.
What's that?
It sounds like it's overmodulated, but I'm not seeing that it is.
It's overmodulating.
It's
for sure.
But it doesn't sound like it is. I mean, it doesn't look like it is. So I'm trying to figure out why that is. Do you have some sort of amp?
I could take off the depth.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there's this is like a Nord stage piano.
Yeah.
But it's the Yamaha kind of cheaper
Idea.
version. And there are a bunch of different things you can put on here. There's a dampening resonance that I can put on the same thing.
'Cause it almost sounds like there's a. It isn't when it is. What I'm hearing doesn't change when you change different sounds. So I wonder if there's something on that has a.
There's a reverb on there that I have on, so take that off. This is just the straight sound
Okay.
of the piano. If I go back up to, that is straight grand piano sound. Like, I just think it's kind of weak, so I add the depth to it,
Yeah.
which is a compressor, and I can turn up and dial up the depth on it.
Okay.
But again, it's one of those things that if I'm just singing by myself and want more punch on the piano, I'll do it to flavor, right?
Okay.
What's going
Yeah.
on. But that's a lot, so I can dial that back. So for gyro, and that's
Alright.
pretty dull, and I could let you do what you do to make it sound whatever way you want to make it
Okay.
sound, which I will do that. So let's try singing it again. Gyro. It was pretty high. It was really high. I could try. I close my eyes and just sing really hard. Just play another key. Gyro. No, I'm not gonna try it. I might. I gotta warm up a little bit. There you go. Maybe I'll start from the beginning. I've never been more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I've never been more loved than I am right now. Gyra, you are enough. Gyra, you are enough. 'Cause I will be content. That is really high. In every circumstance. Gyra, you are enough. So you can see I got louder as my eyes closed and I got into the song. I'm not singing how I sound checked.
Yeah. And again, as a sound person, we have to prepare for that and know that kind of stuff happens. And I think that's good, you know. And as we go on now it's the sound person's job to make the mix, you know. And whether the sound person now is doing, you know, 5 other instruments and everything, it's kind of the same process. Make sure you get your gain structure set your job as a sound engineer is to just make sure that you have everything that's set for everything to work out. Honestly, when you do have your good game.
So I see we are at the hour. Oh gosh. Am I still? Well, I see my screen spinning, so I don't know if I'm. Am I still on? I guess I'm still sending, so I don't know. I can keep going. Maybe I am on still. Oh, hello. Okay, never mind. So let me see what happens here.
And yeah, so let's go to the piano now.
Okay, another.
Well,
sorry, are you recording still?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that is really funny is
well, I won't jump to the end of that, but pretty much I was ending off saying that uh, as you go through checking those instruments, you can as you go through checking your instruments, you can start finding all those little problems that you might have. You can start finding all those different things that are in there, and you can start building together. So now, at this point in time, when you've done that off schedule, off campus, I guess, and you show up at your sound checks on a Sunday, things get a lot easier. Now, I was at a church where we had, again, like a 64 channel soundboard. We used up to 54 channels on a Sunday, and every instrument you could think possible was on stage, plus like a whole line of vocals for vocals with their own microphones. So sound check kind of had to go fast and kind of went crazy. And again, like one week we'd have a cello, a trombone, a bass player. I mean, all these different instruments on stage, and having to make that come together harmoniously can be a challenge because you're doing this on the fly. You can't try to think through some of it. You have to just make it happen. Um, so if you get all this together, you'll start having services that are more put together. Now, if you're a musician out there, it's your job to help the sound man make sure he has everything he needs. The last thing I guess I wanted to kind of talk about was really just um, if you're doing a broadcast mix kind of thing for your church, or you're wanting to do that kind of thing, how that gets set up is basically you you have to get to a point where, and again, I say this because it's hard to talk about this because I don't know if you have a dedicated sound person, some volunteers. Are they trained? Are they not trained? Who knows where they're at? You have to figure out a way to get a mix of what you're doing to a camera or video system that has all the information about your service into it. And I know a lot of people want to just plug in their soundboard with their microphones that are only vocal microphones to the system, and then they don't have any instruments, and people don't want to be in worship. They just come back for the word, which has kind of been almost an opposite in past history. People come for the worship and then they leave for the word. So now you want to figure out how to make that all kind of come together. So I will say, trying to figure out how to get all those different things. And the last thing I'd say is just get room mics. Room microphones are kind of a weird thing. If you're in the band and you want to be able to have in-ear headphones on and you're wanting to feel like things are still live again, You usually attach two microphones from the stage looking toward the audience on either side in a stereo mix so that the band can feel like they are a part of what's going on and that the band can feel like they can hear correctly, and that's a huge thing to give them, that gives them peace of mind. People will sometimes have to do one ear on, one ear off of their headphones or different things, but if they have a broadcast mix and they have an app on their phone where they can dial in how much they hear of everything, which is like an ultimate blessing, or that you have one of those little boxes, one of these Personas or Behringer boxes, or even mine. Everybody has, I think, one coming out now, or will probably. And you got your 16 channels that you can adjust, making sure some of those room mics are in there are great. The one thing I have as a caveat for that, that is not good positioning for a broadcast for your service. So if you have that, you still want to get some mics in the back of the room to actually pick up the audio happening. Now, again, this is to represent the human ear listening to your speakers, or you're listen to what the room is. So someone sitting in your audience, especially if you're a church that doesn't have all the stuff plugged in, doesn't have all the sorry, doesn't have a big huge setup or all the different cameras and everything plugged into it, all cameras, instruments plugged into it, you will basically need to have something that gets the sound of the band into your broadcast. The hard part about that is how do you do that? Because what you just did was probably just take audio from the mixer, which only has your vocal microphones, and plug that into the camera or to whatever you have as a switcher, and you're still not getting that. Maybe a sub mixer or a second small mixer that just has those microphones in the back of the room to represent the sound of the human ear of a person singing in your congregation, what they hear, what they experience, because that is the whole different thing with what the soundboard is doing all the time. Again, when we were talking about soundboards and speakers and mixers, they all produce different things, and they are all producing something specific for what they're specifically there for. So we're having to make sure you cover those different things. Now, a lot of people are just taking their main mix and putting that into everything, and they're realizing, wait, I don't actually can't hear everything, and I'm not presenting everything well. So you got to kind of figure that out. Again, that's what I have said throughout this video, getting a digital mixer. And if anything, I think about this season of life, is even if as hard as it is to deal with analog. And again, if you're at analog, don't jump away quickly. Plan, train, find videos, get on YouTube, look around. There's all kind of training out there. Get knowledge, get information, find someone around the area who can come and at least kind of walk you through a few things if you can. Don't be alone, and don't be scared, and don't. Again, there's price points. There's price points for everyone out there nowadays. Again, the board that we were using, the X18s, the XR18, those are like 400 or 500. I feel like a church can raise that to get something like that, especially if you're at a place that you're small. But having that gives you options and gives you abilities that you haven't had yet. But that's a lot to think about and work on and get going. So process this out, think it out, get with your teams, get with your people, figure out who knows what. I am a big proponent of using the younger generation. A lot of churches don't use the younger generation. Most of them are watching YouTubers and trying to become a YouTubers and trying to go viral, and they're actually watching people, gamers and all that, people who have all these setups. They're seeing everything. They're watching videos of these gamers using equipment and different things. Or people are doing different things, so they're actually getting trained how to do this stuff, and they never really thought about, oh, I can just bring that into church, and that's actually works and actually makes them more of an expert than some of the guys who were working 30, 40 years ago in these industries, which all the equipment has changed now. So again, just kind of take a minute to get an assessment of what you have and what you have going on, and I think your people, your church, everything that you're doing will bring something harmonious. Sound is supposed to be harmonious. Sound is supposed to be beautiful. Sound is supposed to be helpful and not cringing. And if anything, the last word I have to say is, Pastor, get off the mic. I mean, don't eat the mic. Pull it back. If you can hear the speakers crunching and I'm burning out, don't. I love you. Don't. I get it. Sound man, put a compressor on them. It's we got. I know there's a style of preaching and there's a style of way of doing things, and it actually worked into it. And you basically thought that was basically helpful and got you to a place and was normal and natural, and everyone thought that. But that actually is destroying your sound system. That's destroying your soundboard. That's destroying everything you're doing. You want to get away from that. You want to get away from doing that. Why? I'm sorry if it's messing up your sermon flow. I'm sorry if it's messing up your everything that you've been doing or taught to do the right thing to do the right way. But it's going to actually bring a peace to everyone sitting. Especially, I know like every church has that. All those old folks in the front row, they're trying to see, and they sit in the front row right in front of the speakers, and they're getting blown away, and they start leaving. That's probably some of your older support. It's probably some of your older financial support. Probably some of the people who helped start the church. Probably the people who helped buy that system in the first place. Give them something that they can actually deal with, and actually be able to be comfortable with. A lot of the analog boards are not going to help you do that. They don't have the things, and if you start having to buy components and add things and why, and it's just gonna get crazy. You can sum everything up with a little tiny box, and make that kind of easy. So, uh, and for this world, I didn't get a chance to really show it, but the actual digital boards can just plug into headphone amps, so your musicians can actually just get a mix for themselves off of that. Let's see. Someone said we actually had a crossover short out because of that. The bass overloaded. Wow, yeah. See, my house speakers allow for my front row to be dead spot for those members. I mean, yeah, and again, yeah, a lot of churches didn't have a technically are basically a really high end sound installation where it was actually designed, and they brought in like a computer system to do like a whole room thing, and they put all the measurements of your room and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people just got some speakers, threw them up in the air. They might not be hanging legally, but they're there and they're shooting everywhere. And then some churches, they got the highest end stuff, and they can pinpoint where a sound hits in the room and make it sound beautiful right there or everywhere or anything. And wherever you are in that whole entire mixture, as sound people, as musicians, as singers, you got to make sure you are helping everybody. And again, this is actually what builds congregations too. Like, no one really puts that much thought into the sound and the AV people and why they're so necessary and needed. They are the ones who actually make it comfortable to be at church. They are the ones who actually make it like I can actually listen to the worship. I can actually make things happen. And again, it's hard when you're doing that whole box system in a box, and it's harder when you're doing just a regular old analog soundboard. And I'm not saying, again, don't throw that away, don't get rid of it. Pass it down to the kids ministry or your mobile. Maybe you're gonna do outdoor setups. Use that kind of stuff. Build up, build up, build up. I would love to see churches not jump to the biggest, highest, newest thing and then fumble to get it right, and never have anybody who actually knows how to use it, and then it gets kind of crazy, and they're like, why did we buy this in the first place? Um, and again, I'm kind of going through my do's and don'ts, I guess complaints of why I see things and why I have a jobs doing things and go to churches and help set things up and do different things now. And I appreciate the work, but I also want to make sure everyone understands, hey, there's also responsibility for you now, especially if I do set you up. You got to actually make sure you maintain this and maintain what's going on. Yeah, I do have a reset button for you, but also that reset button is only there for emergency uses when you really can't figure it out. That's not a thing. I want you to figure it out. You got to learn this. And if you're a one-man band pastor show, and get some help. And I get it. I get it. It's tough, and maybe it's hard. And if after the pandemic, it's hard to come back, to actually be able to do all this stuff, because people are scared to come in. People aren't sure. People don't want to get their vaccinations. There's another variant. I mean, whatever's out there, start trying to build as best you can with what you have, and see how you can improve it, and get your musicians involved. Make this a team thing. Get some pizzas. Come together. Let's work on building and how we can figure this out. Fundraise. Whatever you got to do, and help make what you have work better. Again, if you have one of those box systems or an analog board and you need to stay there for a little while, see if you have a main insert, and then start using graphic EQs with that. If you have your monitor sends, get one of these guys for each one of those two monitor. Maybe you have two monitors. There's two of these here, 15 bands. This is great. It'll help you get your noise out of those monitors. You can help use it to shape that sound and to get the things out that you don't need. Again, when you are only having monitors, I don't foresee. I would try to not have your whole band coming through those floor wedges unless the musicians need to hear it. Usually they only need to hear maybe a piano, guitar, whatever that is, but they don't need to hear the whole band. And if the whole band is producing sound, again, you have some main speakers and different things. The only thing I would say about that now is your main speakers are facing this way, and your monitors are facing this way, and they're producing different sounds in different directions, and what you hear is not this speaker. You're hearing it bounce off the wall and then come back to you, kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that people have everything EQ'd the right way, so when that does bounce back, it doesn't start feedbacking. Or what happens a lot is the feedback will happen in one speaker, and the other speaker will pick up that sound, and it'll feedback through the whole entire system. But it really started off with the one speaker. So there's a lot to think about, but it helps you improve everything when you start kind of gathering and condensing and putting it all together. Your musicians are happier, your vocalists are happier, the pastor's happier. Like, so he can preach now. His microphone is crisp, clear, and loud, no overloading, all that kind of stuff, and he can do certain things. And I think a lot of the time is because there was never a graphic EQ, he was yelling in the microphone because he probably couldn't hear. He probably could never hear himself. Maybe you never had a speaker for him as well there, because again, the speaker's going this way, and when you're in the room with no congregation, it's going to sound one way, and then they come in and they're going to muffle all that sound that's going out. So when he gets back, when they're all there, is going to be different. Even if you have a small tiny church, what they're going to hear back is going to be different, even if your speakers are like a few feet away. So think about all that kind of stuff, and the human voice and the ear and all those different things produce sounds in a way that your brain interprets you hearing yourself a certain way, and your brain will interpret your feedback and your sound coming from across the room delayed, and it will throw you off in so many different ways. So I also know that a lot of churches had that box system. They don't have any kind of monitors on the floor. Some of those systems can do like two speakers out as your main and one as a monitor. No one's ever thought about doing that, but that's a good thing to try and look at doing. So I'm kind of rambling and talking. I don't know if anybody has any questions or more or anything that are comments, but I'm probably going to wrap it up if I don't see anything here. Doing a lot of talking, so again, I could probably talk for years about audio, AV, and music and stuff. I'm actually, I think I'm coming at the worship leader at my church, and our church kind of has some transitions coming up, so that's kind of why I didn't get a whole lot of different things going at with a whole live complete session like I was hoping to do. But here we are today and getting some things going for now. So I'm not seeing anything pop up in the chat, but I think you guys are delayed for me anyway. But I'll just wait a second here. But if anything, I hope you guys got a lot out of today. Oh, I have so many questions. Yeah, let's hear some of them. And again, some of this stuff is like, okay, but why does this make sense? And it won't ever make sense till you do it, and it happens, and then it's like, bam, oh, now it makes sense. It's just sound is so crazy. thank you, Tech On. Let's see. Is there any way we can get in contact with you? Yes. I can't remember. I don't know if you guys could see my profile, but my email is hal.raines, HAL.RAINES @gmail.com, and I'll try and type that in there. And that's a good way to get to me. Let's see, this has been very helpful. I'm sure it will refer back to it. Thanks. Thank you. Oh, AJ, what up, man? Um, yeah. Hopefully, I'm not in someone's way or in the way of the classroom. I don't know how. I can't remember how that actually worked, but I can get out of someone's way if I am. I can't remember if this was on the page or on the class in a classroom, and somebody else has to use the classroom right after I did. That's probably what kicked me out. But I think that's it. Thank you guys all for coming today. Thank you guys for being here. Um, and I would love for you guys. Oh, do you recommend saving the sound check to use at the later date? If you have a digital board and you can do that kind of stuff, I think it's great. If you have the same band showing up every week, you can use that to kind of preset some things. Again, my thing for a sound check is everyone comes in differently every day, and you're seeing different songs every week, and those songs are in probably different keys, and those keys are going to produce people to sing louder, quieter, play differently, have more rhythm, have different things. So yeah, you probably won't ever have the same Sunday. Um, every song change is a variant of every Sunday. You'll probably always have the same pastor preaching, maybe, and you probably always have the same musicians there, possibly. But again, they're going to be playing something totally different. And every time they're playing something different, you have to change and make something different as well with the sound. So, thank you guys again. I don't know if anything else is going to jump up. I keep getting ready to close it. All right. I'm gonna close it here. I think you definitely can hit me up if you guys have any more questions or anything you guys want to ask and different things. And again, like I said, YouTube is a great thing. That's what I use to do a lot of research and figure some things out. But yeah, questions are always good. I'm in Seattle, just so you guys know. So I thought this was at 12 o'clock for some of y'all. This was at 9 o'clock for me. Um, but thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you some other time. I'm gonna make this look cool on that way out. Okay. All right. Bye.